Hi, everyone, and welcome to Progressive Short Takes. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. The title of this short take is The Lame Duck Delay, Delay, Delay. I've already covered the pre election period and what would happen if the Democrats were to delay at that point. But now we get into the lame duck. So what would happen if they continued their tactics by going into the lame duck? Well, if the Dems are successful in actually delaying until the post-election period, the lame duck, the situation may be a lot more favorable to them. First of all, if Trump appears to have lost, then pressure to support what he wants for the Supreme Court will be far less. If Senator McConnell has lost the Senate, then pressure from him may also be less effective, even if he has won his own race and has returned to the Senate as the leader of the majority. As still being actually the leader of the majority until January. Okay, I want to emphasize that. In other words, if his party has lost the Senate, then he won't be the majority leader, in January. But when he came back after the election, he'd still be the majority leader for 2 months, of course. Okay, if Senator McConnell loses his own race, then he'll just be done. And the only path he'll be done with respect to confirming the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett. The only path to confirmation then will depend on strict ideological loyalty on the part of the Republicans. If the Democrats should win the Senate, and Warnock in Georgia and Kelly in Arizona win their races, and the Democrats will immediately have 49 no votes. Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins have said they would vote no before the election. But assuming Susan Collins loses her seat to Sarah Gideon, a very good assumption at this point, she may then want to change her mind and vote for confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett. After all, she may be very angry, and also, secondly, she may actually prefer, the political considerations aside, a very conservative right-wing justice, like Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, so if she votes for confirmation, then Dems will need another Republican vote in order to block it. Now, maybe Romney would turn at that point. He's now decided, of course, to vote for confirmation, but in the wake of a devastating Republican defeat, he might change his mind if he attributes that particular defeat in the Senate to support for Amy Coney Barrett and an extremist Supreme Court. Okay, and if Trump is gone, and if Mitch McConnell basically is no longer going to be the leader, then maybe Romney would change his mind and would turn and say, well, maybe he doesn't want a justice quite as conservative as Amy Coney Barrett. Okay? Or maybe the Republicans as a whole would not stay disciplined enough to stick with Amy Coney Barrett in the lame duck, especially if a Democratic landslide has created a little bit of a psychological depression, among them. Now, of course, they might be very angry and fighting mad, at that point. But if the Democrats do get a landslide and take over the Senate with very convincing votes in many, many states, then they're going to see the attempt to push through Amy Coney Barrett, plus their actions when it came to COVID and the economy and getting relief to people. They're going to see that as a big repudiation of themselves. And they're going to be very depressed and very disorganized, and they might well not stay organized, sufficiently disciplined in order to actually pass the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett in the lame duck. They may not be able to muster the 50 votes they need, okay, in order to do that. Certainly, Lisa Murkowski would still vote against it. The two Democrats that had been added, Kelly and Warnock, are definitely going to vote against it. So if the Democrats were to stick together, they will have 50 votes. They'll need only one Republican vote. Okay, it could be Romney. Okay, it could be somebody else who gets a little weak in the knees, worried about what happens the next time they run for the Senate. Even if they're in fairly safe states, they still have to be worried about 2022. Okay, if they've just gotten really hit hard in 2020, they're going to be worried about what's going to happen to them in 2022. And if they see lots of senators from very red states falling, if they see Joni Ernst falling, if they see John Cornyn falling, if they see the Democrats have actually won a seat in, say, Tennessee, that's very unlikely, but it may happen. If they see Shelley Moore Capito falling, which also is unlikely, but which may well happen because it appears that a landslide is beginning to shape up, and this vote for Amy Coney Barrett is very, very difficult for them. It's a very, very unpopular vote. Now, they cannot vote against her at this point because they don't want Trump working against them. They don't want that, okay? They don't want Mitch cutting off the financial spigot in the final days of the campaign. They don't want that to happen. So right now, they're stuck with the Republicans. There's no doubt about that. So that's the situation. Anyway, consider these things and consider that what I'm saying is that the very best thing for the Democrats to do now is to fight. Fight like their lives depend on it. Now, their lives don't depend on it, but our lives do. And we're going to be extremely angry at them if they just lie down and let Amy Coney Barrett walk into the Supreme Court without a fight. We don't want to see that. We want to see them go to the mat, and we want to see them bring out all of the issues against her. And don't forget, those issues are legion. They are legion. They're not only health care, but there's also gun violence. There's the possibility of Medicare for all opposition. There's the possibility of Green New Deal opposition. There's the possibility of invalidating all of the federal legislation on the books now that relies on the Interstate Commerce Clause. Because I have a feeling Amy Coney Barrett wants to narrow the application of the Interstate Commerce Clause in law. And that would be a disaster for many, many laws that we have come to take for granted that were passed during the Green New Deal. These are very, very important matters. We have to defeat her nomination. We have to defeat it now. It just has to happen. Thank you very much, and I'll be back with another Progressive Short Take soon.